Hi, welcome to the GOAZCATS.com Arizona football preview show. As always, I'm Troy Hutchison, joined alongside Matt Moreno and former Arizona football standout Joe Tafoya. And guys, let's talk about last week. NAU came into Tucson and kind of owned the Wildcats up front, securing the 21-19 victory in Tucson for the first time in the Lumberjacks history. That's the first win over the Wildcats since 1932. They are now 2-15 versus Arizona. But Joe, I'll turn it to you. Just initial thoughts of that game.
It was embarrassing. It's a home loss. We are now the NCAA's longest. Actually, we've already been the longest losing streak with 15. The NAU coaching staff was overheard walking into the locker room. I'm sure they were pumped up and excited, but they were overheard saying, "We run this state," and quotes like, "It's personal." So, kudos to them. They played a good game, but it's embarrassing. And going into this next week, that's not the performance that we wanted to see. I mean, I could go on and on about how terrible the performance was, but there were some positive things. Let's start with Hispanic Heritage Month. That's awesome. Happy Hispanic Heritage Month, guys. Lance Briggs did the color commentary, so I thought he did a good job. That was pretty good for him. And then we got to see a small glimpse of what Jordan McLeod might be for the future of the Wildcat quarterback situation. I'm sure we're going to get into that next.
Yeah, for me, it was just one of those situations where you said, okay, at the beginning of the game, you're like, okay, they got it figured out. They're going to get this win. They jump out to a 13-0 lead. And you go, I think they figured it out a little bit, enough to at least get this win, get off this losing streak and start something new. And then it starts to get a little bit interesting towards the second half, and especially the second quarter, even before the second half, when Will Plummer threw that interception, turns into a touchdown. You go, this is not looking so great now. And then it just started to pile on, and then NAU takes the lead, and you're just like, this has a chance to go the wrong way. And it just didn't feel right. And then all of a sudden you're going, they're going to lose this game. I went down to the field for the final portion, just as Jordan McLeod is coming into the game. It changed. Things changed when he got in the game. And obviously Will Plummer had some struggles and was throwing interceptions and just didn't look like the player that we saw at the end of the San Diego State game. And then he just couldn't finish it off. But so it was just an interesting game all around. One of those things that you just say, this can't happen. How in the world is this happening right now that Arizona is losing to NAU? And again, we talked about NAU on the show last week. It wasn't a particularly good NAU team. It wasn't like it was a dominant NAU team where you say, Arizona has to be afraid it's going to, its losing streak is going to continue. I think everyone assumed they're going to win this game and you'll end this losing streak. And then you go from this point on. But just to see them lose that game, I think was embarrassing was the only word I could think of, watching it play out. Stanley Berryhill mentioned that word after the game in the press conference, and I still come back to that word. It's just embarrassing for a team like Arizona to lose to a team like NAU.
I watched the game up to the very last play, and I continued to have hope all the way through the end. But, if I'm going to play Monday morning quarterback, for me, I think Coach Fish probably waited like one or two series too long to replace Plummer with McLeod. I think it put him behind the A ball. I think it put him in a tough spot to begin with. He got in the game and got sacked immediately. Of course, they were going to be blitzing. And I thought there were a couple of plays, towards the end where we should have been running the ball. We had some strong performances at running back. The one thing I couldn't understand is why we didn't continue to force the issue with the running game. The running back, Jalen John, came out of nowhere, and he was incredible, almost unstoppable. And then boom, he's gone. Did you guys see that he got injured or something? I didn't understand when that happened. This is a 6A all-state player from Oregon. Why didn't we play? What happened to the running game?
Personally, I think that they were getting beat up front. Jalen John came in and created for himself. Did a good job of, mixing things up, working even with a pretty bad offensive line. And then all of a sudden he disappeared. They stopped using him. I can't come up with an explanation, but I think he's clearly either that 3 or 4 back in the depth chart now. I would look to him to build his way up. He was more effective than Michael Wiley, who had negative yards lost in that game. But for me, it stems with the offensive line. And quite frankly, the word embarrassing has been thrown around a lot. The offensive line has been a big reason for that. You're talking about 3.9 yards a carry against NAU. You got to be kidding me. And it's 2.9 for the season. At some point, when do you just hey, we need to play better as an offensive line? And I don't know if there's a quick fix because there's nobody behind those guys. There's not that depth, but you got to search for answers.
Yeah, just one additional stat, just so we could put a fork in this one and move on to the next one. Pro Football Focus had our passing game ranked at 50. I think it was a 50%. And that's just maybe the worst that I've ever heard for a passing game.
Yeah, there was just nothing that was going right offensively. I do think, it starts up front, but we were talking to coaches this week and they mentioned it's everywhere. It's not just the quarterback. It's not just the offensive line. It's not just the running backs. It's kind of everybody is having things go wrong at different times. And it's all adding up to the offense just really being very stagnant and not able to, score points. And, but for them to have 19 points against NAU's defense, I mean, it's just, you can't have that happen. That's difficult when you look back and you say, well, your head coach is the one calling the plays and, he's responsible for that. And we talked about that, on past shows and Troy and just the idea that, the defense is leading the way right now. I mean, that's, who's leading this team right now. I think the defense came to play and there's going to reach a point where they start to get a little bit frustrated that the offense can't, give them a little bit of support. So it was just all around bad, I think, for the offense. And, it was one of those games that is just very forgettable.
Yeah, no, I think the defense proved they are way ahead of the offense right now. Jordan McLeod, like Joe mentioned, came in and threw a couple nice passes. The biggest thing is he's making quick decisions. And I think that's the thing Arizona needs right now is a quarterback that makes quick decisions because they don't have time to pass it back there. So you're going to be on your feet constantly trying to roll out. Jordan McLeod isn't like a running quarterback, a highly fast quarterback, but he makes quick decisions. He makes smart decisions, and he may turn over the football sometimes, but as long as you're getting the ball out quick, that's going to be the key for Arizona moving forward. Let's jump into the week coming up. They're going to be they're going to be going on the road to Oregon, Autzen Stadium, and that's going to be tough. It's a tough matchup for Arizona, number 3 Ducks. Arizona is 17-27 all time against Oregon. The first meeting coming in 1937 with an Arizona victory, 20-6 over the Ducks. And, this is one of those series where there's been a lot of classic games between the two teams. Arizona, a lot of upsets. I think the games that stick out immediately recently is the Scooby Wright fumble, causing that fumble against Marcus Mariota. Down in Tucson, Kadeem Carey, 50-something carries to beat number 2 Oregon. And then one old school one that jumps out to me is Arizona stopping the Ducks at the 1-yard line for the game-winning tackle at the very half-inch yard line. So, I mean, this series has a lot of great moments, but it's going to be tough for Arizona.
Oregon is ranked number 3 in the country, coming in after a big win against Stony Brook University. I think it was like 48-7. In my opinion, you guys, I think this Oregon team is bringing the number 1 secondary in the entire country. They've got some absolute studs back there. And they also have an incredible defensive line. They've had a couple of injuries early on, but they've got a guy over there who most of the NFL teams are considering the number 1 overall draft choice in Kayvon Thibodeau. And if you guys have ever watched him play, he's got an ankle injury right now. He's virtually unstoppable. And, their linebacking core is strong. They're bringing in CJ Verdell, and he already has over 1,000 yards in 2 separate seasons. The running back, they're stacked full of talent right now. So this is going to be a very tough game. Also, the Wildcats released their depth chart for the week, and it looks like Gunnar Cruz, Will Plummer, and Jordan McLeod are all listed as co-starters. And Coach Fish said he's going to see how things go during practice. I don't know what that means. You guys have any opinion?
That was I think the biggest thing I'm looking at this week is just trying to figure out who even deserves to get the start at this point. Do you start, Gunnar Cruz, who's had his issues? Do you start Will Plummer, who's had his issues? Do you start Jordan McLeod, who we've seen a small sample size of, but he had his issues apparently on the 2-point conversion, checked to a play and didn't let the tight end know what was going on. It leads to a botched, 2-point conversion that could have maybe ended up tying that game. And so you just have a lot of different negatives about each guy. I don't know that the positives outweigh the negatives with any one of them at this point. Probably Jordan McLeod, just because we haven't seen him as much. But I can't tell you who I think deserves to start this game right now. I think you could go with any one of them and see what your chances are. But Jed Fish kind of brought Gunnar Cruz back into this conversation this week and said, hey, he's someone else we have to continue to evaluate and look at. He kind of pointed to the difficulty in going up against a defense like BYU, like a defense like San Diego State, and said maybe those weren't the best situations for him to really try and get his feet wet with. But my response to that would be then, so Oregon is the right type of team that you're going to try and throw this quarterback out there against this defense when Joe just mentioned he thinks they have the number one DB group in the country. That's a difficult choice to make. And so the other aspect of that is, what's the response from the fan base going to be like if you throw Gunnar Cruz out there and he struggles again, when everyone at this point, we know how fan bases are. They're going to decide who they want, and they're going to say, I know I'm right because I know what I saw. Right now, they're all saying they want Jordan McLeod and they want to see what he can do. And so do you go with Jordan McLeod? Even it feels like the coaching staff hasn't had their full confidence in him yet. Like I mentioned before, he's been behind the other two guys. He just hasn't been in the system as long. So it's very much a double-edged sword in really any way that Jed Fish wants to go. I don't know that there's an easy answer. We'll have to see, I guess, based on what happens this week in practice and who he decides, deserves that start. But it's kind of another mess. And rather than shrinking down this competition that we said was finished a couple weeks ago and was over, they've now expanded it to 3 guys. And you have 3 guys that are all battling for this job. And you're not in a better spot than you were a few weeks ago.
No, and
go ahead, Troy.
Go ahead, Joe.
I
was gonna say, with what Jordan McLeod showed going, I believe it was 6 for 7 with 66 yards and a touchdown. It instilled confidence in fans. Like Matt mentioned, fans are going to want Jordan McLeod to be the starting quarterback this weekend. But another thing that factors in is you're playing in Autzen Stadium. Joe, you mentioned they have a great secondary. In my opinion, they probably have the best defense in the Pac-12, if not the top 5 in the country. And are you going to trust a quarterback in Gunnar Cruz who's hesitant to throw the ball to go out there, 50-something thousand fans screaming down your throat, playing against that defense? Are you going to trust Will Plummer to not make mistakes? In my opinion, you have to go with Jordan McLeod. We'll find out Thursday, but I think if you're looking for a quarterback that's been through the battles and played in tough environments, which he has at his previous stop, it's that guy. And right now, maybe it's best for that team. Not saying he's going to win the job long term, but for this game right now, in my opinion, it's Jordan McLeod.
I mean, let's play Monday morning quarterback again here, guys. If you go back to the NAU game and you've got Gunnar Cruz in the game, do you see a different outcome?
It's so difficult to say. I feel like maybe if you see Jordan McLeod earlier in the game, you see a different outcome. It feels like. I think there is some validity to what Jed Fish was saying in that, that going up against the San Diego State defense and going up against the BYU defense is a difficult task. We've seen San Diego State have some success. We've seen BYU have some success, since that game to open the season. So I do think there is some validity to that. But we haven't seen him do the things that you want to see a quarterback do in other ways. And even a glimpse of that, he's looked kind of almost nothing like the guy we saw during training camp and even spring ball, where he was just so consistent day after day. And that's why I think he gained so much momentum over that time, with people saying he's going to end up winning this job, is because of that consistency. Feels like we haven't seen any glimpses of that, now that the season has started. So I don't really know. I really have no idea where they need to go with this. I think you can make a case for all 3 guys, and I think you can make a case against all 3 guys. So it's a very difficult position to be in. It's not one that any of the coaches on the offensive staff want to be involved with right now and want to be dealing with at this moment. They all have their own issues kind of at each position that they need to get ironed out. But it feels like the offense can't move forward until you have that quarterback's position stabilized. And right now it doesn't feel like it's any closer to being completed or finalized than it was a few weeks ago.
Yeah, no, and I completely agree. Seconding all of that. For me, I don't know if Gunnar Cruz, if he starts that game, Arizona wins that game. I think Jordan McLeod coming in earlier, they probably definitely win that game. But in my opinion, Gunnar Cruz might be the most talented of the bunch. But how do you fix a quarterback's hesitation? How do you fix somebody hesitating on not making quick decisions, not making the proper reads in terms of scared to throw the football? I don't know what that answer is. Joe, you played in football. How do you fix the mental side of a quarterback?
Well, you don't put them in against the best secondary and maybe the best defense in the country. That's for sure. And if they do that, it's going to be behind the eight ball also. And there's no real answer here. And I'm feeling the same way that you guys are feeling right now. And that's not very confident. I'm not confident in playing this very talented Oregon team who they put up 35 points on Ohio State, 48 points on Stony Brook. And none of this looks good. I mean, they beat a very good Fresno State team in the first game of the season. Now they have some injuries, and we've got some guys that are out also. There were 2 penalties that happened in that game that I'm sure everybody wants to hear at least what your guys' opinion about those 2 penalties were, and you guys know what I'm talking about. The targeting. How in the world do the referees have the ability to take 2 of our best players out of the game going into this road game? What happened?
You want to go on that one, Matt?
Yeah. I mean, to me, there were 2 very different examples of what the targeting call is. And somehow one looked very much like the textbook targeting, low in your head, helmet to helmet. Again, the olden days, that was just a good football play. We're not in the olden days anymore. But so Jackson Turner's, I could believe and understand why it was called targeting. To me, that's in today's game, that's what they would point to and say that's a targeting play. Mo Diallo's was, I don't understand how they reached that result. Even after replay, when you get a chance to review it, I could maybe understand in real time, he lowered his head and I could see maybe if you're calling that from the back and you see him lower his head and that's what you're going on. But when you get a chance to review it and every replay, every angle that they had showing every replay, you could see it clearly was not targeting. He moved his head at the last second. He made a really strong play. That's a difficult play to make when you're going full speed and you change your head and avoid hitting the quarterback, helmet to helmet. That's, again, I've said it before, you should be commended for being able to do that because that's a very difficult play for a defensive lineman like that coming full speed to change his course and not, draw the penalty, and he draws the penalty anyway. My thing is when you go back to and review it, right, how do you go and review that play and say that's a targeting call? I don't know how anybody could watch that and say that was targeting. It just wasn't. It wasn't. And now Arizona's going to be down. Right. Arizona's now going to be down. It's one of its starting defensive linemen for the first half of its game against the number 3 team in the country because of a blatant missed call that just shouldn't happen. So targeting calls make me very angry because there's no consistency. There's no consistency in them. If every call was, the same one they call in Jackson Turner, that's fine. But to have a chance to go look at it again and still get it wrong, right, you just can't have that happen.
Okay. We felt the same way about it then. I didn't understand, and I still don't understand how they can have that much authority over what happens, not just in this game, but in the game to follow as well. I mean, we're going to lose them for 2 quarters. And I mean, we need all the help we can get.
And, I think personally, the rule needs to be reevaluated. I understand safety is first and you want to keep players' safety, but you're asking defensive players to make a quick split-second decision already after making a split-second decision if they're going to hit someone. You're asking them to lift up what Mo Diallo did. In my opinion, that was not targeting as well. But I think what needs to happen moving forward, instead of saying, hey, they're going to be out the first 2 quarters the next game and injecting them out of the game, what needs to happen is kind of like a grace penalty. You have a 15-yard penalty, they move forward, and that's your first flagrant one, just like college basketball. And if you do it again, then yeah, you're gone, and you're gone for the second half of the game. But I don't see how you can penalize somebody for not only the remainder of one game and the beginning of the next for making a split-second decision. And a lot of these are anticipated targeting calls because the refs are told to look for them, which I get why they are. But the fact that they can go back and review, I just think the whole system needs to change on that. Maybe make it a 2 penalty and you're gone. But I think some reevaluation needs to be done.
At the very least right now, Arizona should be able to appeal and say, can you please go take a look at that call and, renege on the suspension for the first half of this Oregon game. And they say, you know what, we made the wrong call. We apologize for, kicking out Mo Diallo for the second half of that game. But yes, you're correct. Wasn't, the right call on the field. Should have not been ejected from that game. And yes, he's fine to play for the entire Oregon game. But that's not possible right now. That's just not going to happen. It's not what they do. And Jed Fish mentioned that he sent it off to be reviewed and to be looked at. But the Pac-12 is not going to make that decision and say, yep, go ahead. We're going to, allow Mo Diallo to back in this game. I mean, that's just not going to happen. And so, Arizona's going to be without a starter, but at the very least, that should happen.
Be able to do that. They
Absolutely.
should be able to do that. And this should be under review. I understand, everyone's human and everyone makes mistakes, but that's what the replay is for. I just thought it was a really bad call, and we'll leave it at that. Moving forward onto the University of Oregon guys. I mean, I could sit here and name top prospects all day long, but there are a couple of guys that really stand out for me. I mentioned one of them earlier, and his name is Kayvon Thibodeau. If you guys haven't had a chance to watch some of his film, he's an edge rusher. He wears the number 5. Take a look at some of those plays. Now, he's got an ankle injury. I think he sat out last week, but he didn't really even need to play. If he's in this game, our offensive tackles, who's playing right now, Jordan Morgan and Peyton Fears, they've got their hands full. Neither one of them scored a very high grade, according to Pro Football Focus, against NAU. And, when you play this game, if you're wanting to move to the next level, you want to play against the best. Well, this is going to be their opportunity. They're going to play against some of the best players in college football right now. Isaac Slade Matutia, I probably butchered that. He's one of their inside linebackers, along with Noah Sewell. These guys are incredible. Let's just call them football players, but they're high caliber tacklers. And I can't say enough good things about that secondary over there. This defense is stacked from top to bottom. We're really going to have to figure out how to run the ball against these guys. I think that's really our only choice.
Yeah, no, I second that. I mean, Oregon statistically this season has only given up 115 yards rushing per game, 300 yards passing per game, but that's also against Ohio State, who has a pretty good quarterback back there. But if Arizona's going to want to win this game, I think it's going to start with defense and running the football and special teams. But you look at Oregon, it's not only defense. I mean, that front seven, like you mentioned, is impressive, but CJ Vidal, I mean, that guy's a monster. Only 289 rushing yards, but that's because of the product they played. But against that Ohio State team, that Buckeye team in Columbus, Ohio, he put on a show. And that kid is something special. I mean, that guy, when you look at him, he's everything you want in a running back. They do have a new quarterback in Anthony Brown from Boston College, I believe. Hasn't turned over the football. In fact, this Oregon team's only turned it over once this season. They're definitely a run-first team.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the greatest gift that Oregon could give to Arizona this week would be to hold back Kayvon Thibodeau and say, hey, we don't need you for this week. We're going to sit you out, let you rest some more and rest that ankle a little bit more, because that just seems unfair to do that to this offensive line, which is going through so many issues right now. It just doesn't seem right to throw that guy out there against really anybody Arizona has right now up front. And so we'll see if Oregon plays nice. I highly doubt they will. I bet he gets into the game at least for a few snaps. Probably not going to play the entire game because he is still banged up. But even if they don't have him, they have so many stars on that defense that it almost still is unfair even without him on the field. They just have so many different playmakers defensively. To a man, I think you could go across that entire defense and, say Oregon has the advantage at every position. And that's just a difficult spot to be in if you're Arizona, and a difficult place to be in if you're a team trying to go in for the upset. But I guess that's why they play the games, and Arizona's been known to kind of be that team that can upset a team like Oregon. But when you just look at the talent disparity between the two teams, I cover recruiting. I know a lot of, how highly recruited and how highly ranked a lot of the players on this team were. It's just star after star when you go down the list of their defensive players, offensive players as well, but especially defensively, you just see, star player after star player who had, any offer you could want, could have went to any number of schools, and they just have a ton of talent. The interesting thing about Anthony Brown, Don Brown, has those roots back to the Boston area, has some familiarity with him. So that could be an advantage for Arizona, where Don Brown maybe has a little bit of an insight into how Anthony Brown will work. He got injured in that last game as well. They had to go with their freshman, Ty Thompson, who's from down here in Arizona, a freshman quarterback who did some nice things. So we'll see what happens with them at the quarterback position. I believe from everything I've heard so far, Anthony Brown is expected to play, or at least they're feeling good about his chances to play this weekend. If that's the case, maybe Don Brown has some insight in some things and dial some things up to continue trying to apply some pressure and, give Arizona a chance to win, which they've done. I mean, if you look at this, we talked about this, Troy, the defense has done its part and probably put Arizona in position to be 2-1 at this point in the season. If the offense would have held up, their end, Arizona had a very solid chance, I think, to be 2-1 at this point in the season, based on how the defense has performed. So they've done their job, and we'll see if they can do it again this week.
Yeah.
You brought up a good point about them having a lot of depth. Anthony Brown did leave the game. He left with like a leg injury or something. I got to watch part of that last game where they beat up on the Seawolves, and they brought in freshman quarterback Ty Thompson, who made his first appearance there. And he was throwing the ball to other freshmen during the game. They were winning so big that he ended up throwing, I think he hit Deontay Thornton for a touchdown, or tight end Terrence Ferguson. Both are freshmen as well. And he made some strong throws. He looked pretty confident. So even if Anthony Brown's not in the game, we're going to face Ty Thompson and a high-scoring Oregon Duck offense, and we're going to see what the future is going to look like for them as well. But that secondary and that defense, this is going to be a tough game.
Yeah, no, it definitely is the case for Arizona. They are heading into a tough environment against one of the best teams in the country, number 3, Oregon. As you look at the Arizona's roster, obviously quarterback issues, we don't know who's going to be there yet. Who are the 3 guys or 3 positions that you would pick are your 3 guys for this week heading into the Oregon game?
So something to watch out for, I mentioned earlier, is if you want to play at the next level, you want to play against some of the top talent. And Peyton Fears, Jordan Morgan, I don't remember the guards' names, but whoever's playing guard, that entire offensive line needs to be absolutely prepared, because I don't think Oregon's going to take it easy on us. It's just not, it's not in the cards. So let's watch the entire offensive line perform against one of the best defenses in the country. And another guy to watch out for is Stan Berryhill. He turned in another solid performance last week with 11 catches for 94 yards. And then after the game, he was quoted saying he was just going to use what everyone's saying about him and about their team and coaches as fuel. So let's hope that his fire is burning white hot. We're going to need him and his best performance against what I think is the best secondary in college football. And then Kyle Ostendorp, our punter, because we're going to need good field position all game long. So those are my 3 key guys positions to watch in this one.
Those are 3 really good picks.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would go with the guard, Donovan Laie. I mean, you're talking about guys that this is an opportunity for a lot of players who have NFL aspirations to show what they can do. It's a nationally televised game. It's going to be on ESPN. You're going to go up against the number 3 team in the country. You want to play well. And those guys that have NFL aspirations, this is your chance to really show that you could hang with the big boys and that you belong in that conversation as well. And so Donovan Laie is probably the offensive lineman who has the most kind of NFL buzz and has had the most NFL buzz for a while now. But he's had his own issues. Obviously, I think everyone feels like maybe he's playing potentially out of position a little bit. Maybe he feels more comfortable at left tackle, but playing that left guard spot. Arizona, when I think I mentioned it last week, when they have their running game going, it feels like all the action is to the left side. And they've had a lot of success running behind Donovan Laie. And to me, the ground game has to get going this week. There's just no excuse for it not to get going for Arizona. If they want to win this game, they have to get those running backs on the move and pick up some big yards. And so I think he's going to be very important. I think in the secondary, I think Christian Roland Wallace is another guy who had kind of an interesting little start. This last game, he got the interception, had a couple of really nice plays, had a tackle where he was getting blocked and basically shed the tackle or shed the block and went and made the tackle. And so to me, he's another player, NFL aspirations, someone who's really looking to potentially play at the next level and has the skills to do so. This is an important game for him to showcase what he can do and take that next step. Arizona had success getting takeaways, creating turnovers in this last game. They need to continue that. And I look to him to be someone who could potentially do that, especially if you talk about him going potentially up against a freshman quarterback, Ty Thompson, someone you can maybe exploit a little bit. And then to me, someone who I think people forgot about because there was just so much going on. You're talking about the outcome of the game. Booby Curry, he kind of emerged in this last game, had a couple touchdown catches, his first 2 touchdown catches at the college level. He played against NAU like everyone has been expecting him to play since he arrived on campus. And if this is the starting off point for him hitting that next stage of his career, it's going to be a very, very good thing for Arizona. He's a bigger body guy. There are a lot of issues in run blocking scenarios with the receivers. They're just a smaller group. It's more difficult for them to block against bigger DBs. And in those running situations, that contributes to it as well. When, you can't block on the outside because you're just getting manhandled by big corners and big DBs. Booby Curry is a little bit taller, has that advantage of being someone who can do some things on the outside in the run game, but also his big playability. He had that explosive play early in the game with Will Plummer, 49-yard touchdown, had the touchdown that got Arizona close from Jordan McLeod in the end. I think he's someone who could really shine in this game. And if that was a starting point against NAU, it's going to be good things for Arizona. And I look to him to potentially have another big game.
It's a good pick. I like that one.
So, yeah, no, those are very good picks, you guys. But, I want to talk about a running back in Drake Anderson. I know we talked about Jalen John, but Drake Anderson had a pretty big game as well. 72 yards rushing, and he got stronger as the game went along. And I think he's pretty good inside the tackles, where I think that's where Arizona's going to run the football. It's going to be up to those interior offensive linemen and Drake Anderson to create that space, because in my opinion, that's been Arizona's bright spot, if there is a bright spot on the offensive line, because you mentioned Donovan Lai before, Matt. And then also number 2 is going to be the linebacking core. Anthony Pandy and Trayshawn Hayward, they've got to have a big game, get in the backfield. Oregon's going to do a lot of diversion. They're going to run off tackle. They're going to do some misdirection plays. If they can stay focused and get to the running backs, Arizona's going to be in pretty good shape there. And then lastly, special teams. Lucas Haversack had a pretty good game, going 2 for 2 with field goal opportunities. They're going to need him to step up this weekend. And Kyle Orsendorf, he had a couple good punts and then some punts that sailed in the back of the end zone. He's going to need to pin Oregon inside their 20, and it's going to be a battle of field position. So defense needs to step up. Special teams needs to help the defense out and just run the football and kill the clock. Because I think if you're able to slow down this game, that's going to be your best chance.
So we need offense, defense, and special teams. That's what we need. Guys, we're counting on it. This ought to be a fun one to watch. I'm up here in the Pacific Northwest, and got a lot of guys that I know that are Oregon Ducks, and boy, oh boy, are they going to love sticking it to me.
There's also a recruiting element to this. One of Arizona's top recruiting targets, T-Mac McMillan, obviously picked Oregon over Arizona. Those were his top 2, and 2 of his friends are committed to Arizona. 2 of his friends and teammates are committed to Arizona. If Arizona somehow pulls off the upset this weekend, maybe those conversations with T-Mac McMillan get going again. Maybe they say, hey, do you really want to go up there? Hey, look, we had a 0-15 team, beat them. They're number 3. Maybe those conversations get going a little bit more. So I think there's a lot riding on this for Arizona, both currently and for the future as well.
And not only
sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, not only for McMillan, but you're on national television. So, I mean, this is a huge recruiting spot for Arizona, not only for McMillan, but just nationally as well.
I used to love playing in games like this because when the national spotlight is on, every once in a while, if your number shows up and then it shows up again and it shows up again, they spotlight you. Next thing you know, you got telephone calls and you got agents calling you. So this is a big game individually for a lot of guys. If someone can step up and make a couple of plays, heroes are made on Monday Night Football. This is the same kind of scenario. They're not expected to do anything big, but individually, if we have some guys to step up and become heroes in the game, Coach Fish is going to look at that. The rest of the country is going to look at that. It's something to pay attention to.
But as always, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time. For Joe, for Matt, I'm Troy Hutchison, and see you later.